How long ago was it that you first heard about Asimov's Foundation, and what made you decide to adapt his stories now?
I was 13. My father gave me a copy of the trilogy. He said, "This is the greatest science fiction work ever written. No pressure." I threw it in a closet and didn't read it until I was 25, and then I kind of got it. Over the course of my career, I was offered to adapt it a couple of times as a feature, and I just thought this thing is way too sprawling. I can't condense it into 3 hours or even 9 hours. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, it came my way again, but this time with the advent of streaming and these big, giant, epic shows that we're seeing, I thought, well, maybe you could adapt Foundation if you had 60 hours or 70 hours or 80 hours. And I decided I would give it a go.
Foundation is so expansive. How did you decide which parts of what stories to take? Did you stick to the original, like four short stories that then got adapted, or did you go into some of the other novels that were written? How did you narrow that all down?
Well, the first thing I decided to do, there are, yeah, as you mentioned, there are two prequel books, there are two sequel books. But I decided that I told Apple and Skydance, time is going to be a character in the show. We're going to do time jumps. And I decided that it's going to be a remix. We're going to pull some of the elements from the prequels. We're going to pull some of the elements of the sequels. The original work was written over 70 years ago. It can't be a straight line for line adaptation. We live in a different world. The audience is completely different. So I tried to identify the key themes that Asimov was working with, and I quickly realized there are virtually no female characters. I think there's only one that has any speaking parts in the first book, and I quickly decided, given today's audience, that that's not going to work. That we had to gender flip some of the characters, and I proposed that to Robin Asimov and the Asimov estate, and they were very supportive of that. And they said, "How are you going to handle the time jumps?" And I said, "We'll handle the time jumps, but I think the biggest challenge with Foundation is grounding it in emotion, grounding it in character." And I want science fiction fans and Asimov fans to embrace the show, but I want a really big tent. I want people that don't consider themselves science fiction fans uh, to watch the show and to find themselves moved by the show and carried away on this epic adventure. And so for me, the big challenge was emotion, 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 figuring out characters that could embody the themes that Asimov was working with.
One of the things that Asimov is known for is sort of hiding a lot of the world building inside of the text. And there's a lot of it. So, how did you go about extracting your production design from this? How did you suss out the tech?
What I said to all of my designers that I wanted a lot of the tech to feel intuitive. I didn't want to spend a lot of time in dialogue talking about how it works, but I wanted the audience to kind of look at it and understand it and feel like it makes sense. I wanted everything to feel gritty and very real. So the assumption was at the beginning of production that we were going to film a lot of this against a green screen or something like that. And I said, no, 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 no. We're gonna we're going to go to 6 different countries. So we're going to film as much of this in real environments as we possibly can, because I want to go the opposite direction. I want you to feel the grit. I want you to feel the sun. I want you to feel the ice. I want it to feel real.
Okay, so six different continents, six different directors all over the world in a pandemic. What was it like shooting in the middle of that?
On one hand, it was a blessing because there was so much anxiety in the world. It was a blessing to have this project to work on, to immerse, ourselves in. My family, my kids went with me from country to country to country. Everyone was Zoom schooling, so that was a gift to have just something to distract us, and also to know that we were making a show that was fundamentally about hope, about humanity coming together. That was also a gift. It was so hard though that it was almost surreal. We filmed everything out of order. We had 6 different directors, so we would film everything, from episodes 1 to 10 in Iceland. and then we would move to another country. And so I just had to constantly remind everyone from scene to scene to scene, from country to country to country, this is where the characters are emotionally. This is where we are in the story. Make sure that everything flows together. It was a challenge, but at different points in the production, I would show some scenes to the cast and crew, and I think everyone felt like we were making something that we were proud of, and we were maybe making something that had a message that the world could use today. And so that helped keep everyone together. But I'm incredibly proud of the cast and crew for us pulling it off.
Speaking of the cast, not only was your cast ethnically diverse, but also behind the scenes, it looks like your writer's room was just as diverse. Did one inform the other?
When I realized that I was going to have the opportunity to adapt this, I thought it was a privilege and a tremendous responsibility. I knew that we would be telling the story on a very big canvas, and I decided early on that I wanted the room to be really diverse in terms of race and gender and sexuality, and I encouraged everyone to have spirited debates and to challenge me and to challenge everyone else. And so I think the casting was, to a certain extent, an outreach of what happened in the room. But I was aware of that responsibility, and aware of the fact that there were a lot of, I think in this type of story, underserved voices. That was important to me and important to all of us.
Let's talk about the cast a little bit. Lou Llobell, I am stunned that this is her first major role. What did you see in her audition that made you believe that this newcomer could carry such a huge production?
When I do casting, I'm very instinctual. And I just kind of know in my heart when someone feels right. Um, it was my hope that we find a newcomer for Gail. I knew that I wanted to kind of root the show in Lee Pace and Jared Harris, and then populate the rest of the cast with a lot of relatively new faces. We saw over 500 young actresses. As it happened, Lou came in on the second day. She, I think, was the sixth person to read for the part. Cut to 3 months later, 500 actresses later, I'd completely forgotten about her. And when it was getting time to do the screen tests, I went back and I watched every single one of the auditions going back to day one. And I got to hers and I said, oh my God, it's her. And I emailed Skydance and I emailed Apple and I said, I sent them the link and I said, this is Gail. And fortunately, everyone agreed with me, but I just knew immediately that she could pull it off.
Lee Pace, you mentioned as well. The Cleons. I don't think they're in the book, right?
Well, they're an invention of mine that don't exist in the books. In the books, there is an Emperor Cleon, but then when you get to the next story, it's a completely different emperor. And I felt that I needed to give the audience something to hold on to. So I thought it's a good example of taking Asimov's themes and embodying them in a character. So if Empire is resistant to change, what is the most crazy expression of that? A single man that's just wanting to clone himself over and over and over and over again. That's like the biggest egotistical move you can make. And so I thought, great, this is a character way of addressing Asimov's themes. And so even though the Cleons, from in some cases episodes to episodes or seasons to seasons, will be technically different actors, they're going to have the same faces as Lee Pace and Terrence Mann and Cassian Bilton, who we'll meet a little on later on in the season. And it's also fun for the actors because they get to play different characters. They're not all the same from episode to episode or season to season.
Jared Harris. Did you write Harry's character with him in mind?
I did. I had a picture of Jared Harris. I'd been a fan of his for a long time. I had a picture of him on the wall in the writer's room. It never happens that you get who you're writing it for, but in this case, it was hard for me to imagine anyone else than Jared Harris playing Harry Seldon. And he was the first person we went out to. and we got him, and I will be forever grateful. He's a phenomenal actor and also just a great guy.
In this world, the world of foundation, which do you think is more important? Math, culture, or philosophy?
Woo!
Yeah, I thought I'd hit you with a big one before I left.
I would argue, well, Harry Seldon would argue that math is the most powerful, but I would actually argue that it's culture at the end of the day. Culture is what makes us human.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.